Today I'm joined by Joe Kent. Joe's the owner of Prime Traffic Management, which provides traffic management solutions across Kent, London and the South East. So welcome, Joe.
Well, Simon, thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. So, Joe, look, let's start off by just tell us a little bit about Prime Traffic Management and what you do.
Yeah, cool. So we're a temporary traffic management solutions, basically. So I'm sure you'll all come across roadworks at some point and you get very frustrated throughout the day because it's delayed your journey by a few minutes. Well, you can blame me for that delay. Well, I wish you could blame me for all of them, but not just quite yet. But yeah, so basically we do the traffic lights, we do the road closures, diversions, and yeah, we do things like that, and yeah, try to make it as seamless as possible so we don't actually impact your day as much as you think we might.
Okay, so just to put that into perspective, if there's some, I don't know, some roadworks that need doing or something like that, or as you say, traffic lights aren't working, you get contacted and you say, and somebody will say, look, can you put some traffic management in place, whether it's diversions or whatever it may be, so the traffic can be managed whilst we're repairing the road or maintaining the road or mending the traffic lights or whatever it may be. Have I understood that correctly?
Yeah, mostly. So obviously we do deal with it's basically just any works that impact the highway. So it's not necessarily like a bit of tarmac patching. It could be anything. If you've got an overhanging tree and someone needs to take that tree down, then we could put in temporary traffic management for that. So we do work with quite a few different industries. A lot of them are pre-planned, so the planning stage will be quite in advance time. So maybe do a lot of planned works, but we do a lot of the reactive stuff as well, emergency call outs, for like things like gas leaks, water leaks, flooding, and so on. So
okay, so it's the pre-planned and emergency. So
yeah.
So what would you say, Joe, is important? What are the biggest priorities to get in or to get right in your business? Because you alluded to some of them there, that actually you want to minimize disruption by what you do. So what are the main priorities to get right so that actually you feel as though you've done a great job?
Yeah, well, obviously minimising the impact to the network as a whole is part of our job. We don't want to go out there. We don't want to cause chaos, and this is a common misconception when we do put roadworks out, and we do get a lot of abuse for it from members of the public. But we're not there to make things worse. We're there to make things better. Obviously, we're there to set up a safe working site for contractors to conduct their works in. Unfortunately, it is going to impact your day slightly, but obviously we always try to minimise that impact, whether we have someone on site that will do manual control of the traffic lights. If he sees this end's getting busier than this end, then we'll let more of that traffic through and things like that. So yeah, no, we always will try and minimise the impact of the local network.
Right. Okay. And what else is important then when you're putting these sort of this traffic management in place? So minimise disruption. What is it? Is there anything else that that's important to make sure that?
Yeah, definitely. It's planning it.
Yeah.
My nan, bless her, always used to say, "Fail to prepare, prepare to fail."
Yeah.
You know, and that's quite an old saying, but it's a very true one. I'm meticulous in planning. I like to know everything about that particular job. So it definitely does come to the planning side of things and making sure you've got all of your ducks in a row, so to speak. But obviously, there's things that happen when we get out on site that there's no way that we could have planned and prepared for that. Then that's when we can then rely on our policies and procedures that we've got in place to be able to combat that and still be able to get the job done effectively.
Yeah. Okay. Great. I love that the planning there, because you can. It's important to plan and to find out, as you quite rightly said there, do your research, find out as much as you can to prepare a great plan. But then when you get there, sometimes that you may need to adapt and change that plan and have flexibility, because what you thought might be the case may turn out to be different, or something might have changed, and that's where you've got to go, okay, let's look at our plan and what we need to change. Okay.
It could be something as simple as when we went there and we put in some no parking cones, for example. We could get there, someone's moved them out of the way and they parked 3 cars there. You know, it could be something as simple as that. But then, as I said, that's when we then rely on our procedures that we've got in place to be able to combat that, so that we can then get the job done safely.
Brilliant. So, okay. Which is, I guess, you mentioned there a number of sort of another priority, which is, you know, minimises disruption and making sure safety as well is obviously extremely important. And then the two things that you do to help you to meet that, those things that you want to achieve, which is planning and having processes and systems in place that help you to achieve those, let's call them goals that you want to achieve, minimize disruption and everything being done safely. Look, let's take a step back for a second here, because I'm interested. How long have you been in business for? You know, how long have you been a business owner for, Joe?
So I started I registered Prime Traffic Management in March 23, so last year. So it was probably nearly 18 months ago now. So yeah, it's been running about 18 months, but I've probably spent a good 18 months before that actually planning to do it as well. So it's in my head it's been 3 years, but in reality it's only been a year and a half.
Yeah. So okay. So going through the planning stage beforehand, which is great. You know that again, linking to planning there. Yeah. But if you want anything to be a success, it's about planning. I use a formula in my coaching, Joe, which and I'll just quickly mention this sort of formula, which is D multiplied by G multiplied by L multiplied by A equals success.
Yeah.
And what that means is D is dream.
Yeah.
What is it that you ultimately want to achieve? What's your dream? So, like, relating it to your planning for your business. What do I want my business to look like in the future? Then we've got G, which is goals. Okay, what goals do you need to set to achieve, like, so that you achieve your dream?
Yeah.
The L stands for learning. What do I need to learn? What do I need to know to achieve those goals?
Yeah.
The P stands for something we've already sort of mentioned a number of times, which is planning.
Planning.
Yeah. And then the A stands for action. So once you've done all those other things, it's right. Now, let's do it. So yeah, what you've sort of said there follows a great principle that I use with my clients in coaching. So let's step back again. What made you decide to start your own business, Joe? Why did you suddenly sort of go, do you know what? I'm going to set up my own business, and I'm going to set that business up in traffic management.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, Simon, it's probably going to take it back a little bit further than that in time. But I actually done an apprenticeship in IT.
Okay.
Worked in the IT industry for a few years. Had my own little IT thing on the side where you'd get your mum or your nan and one of their friends ring you up, oh, my computer's broke, my printer's broke, things like that. I then decided to move to Australia. I just had enough of being in England for a little while. The weather was pretty rubbish. So yeah, I'd literally just decided to go to Australia. Whilst I was out in Australia, I sort of said to myself, well, I've got an opportunity here to reinvent myself and do different things with my life, things that I may not otherwise have done. There's plenty of different opportunities out there. And obviously, when you're getting over that jet lag thing, I was laying in bed probably like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, just scrolling through the job sites, and I just kept seeing traffic management pop up. So yeah, I've just done a little bit more exploring into it. Went and done my tickets, and then yeah, just started on my journey in traffic management out in Western Australia. Started from the bottom, worked my way up to senior management over the course of a few years, and then decided to come back home. Missed having a cup of tea with my mum, pint with my dad. Came back home, carried on doing TM for a while for a few different smaller companies, and then just sort of realised that because of the position that I was in out in Australia, having to come back and start again from the bottom, and people not really listening to me because they're like, "Oh, he's the new boy. He don't know what he's on about."
Mm.
Well, really, if you actually listen to what I'm trying to say, you'll be able to understand that it's right what I'm saying. So I just sort of got a bit fed up with it, really, and I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to do my own thing. So yeah, that's what I did, and then yeah, started planning it. And as I said, probably put about 18 months worth of planning into Prime Traffic Management before I said, yeah, right, it's time to go for it. So,
Right. No, thank you for that background. So what, when you started out on that, you know, you went, well, I'm going to start up my own business. You mentioned one reason there that you wanted to do it, which was because you felt as though your voice wasn't being sort of heard when you were working for employers. Was there any other reasons, or what other reasons did you have for setting up your own business?
I personally wanted to. I've always wanted to have my own business. I've always wanted to be in control of things, because if I'm in control of things, there's no one that can criticize the outcome other than myself, and it's going to be no one else's fault but myself. So it was being able to be in that position. And my dad's owned his own business for 20 odd years as well. So seeing him in that position and being able to spend additional time with him when I was growing up, sort of put myself in that position so I could spend additional time with my children when they're growing up. So yeah, there was a few different contributing factors to the whole thing, but I would say, yeah, obviously the main thing for me was obviously my voice not being heard, having a plethora of knowledge and experience from various situations in Australia as well as in the UK. And then yeah, just wanting to probably spend a bit more time with the family and that as well. Make sure I can attend special things like football games and gymnastics and ballet shows and so on and so on.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely. No, yeah, it's nice to get that family time, isn't it? So,
Yeah.
okay. So how have the first 18 months been? Has it been what you expected it to be in these first 18 months?
To be honest, it's been quite a learning curve, if I'm honest with you. Which I think anyone in the same position as I am will say probably the same thing. Whilst I'm obviously trying to learn more, not about my business, but about business in general. I think that's probably been my biggest challenge. I know my job. I know I'm good at my job. It's not very difficult to put out some traffic lights and some signage and do it all properly. It's probably been the general business stuff that has been the biggest learning curve for me. And yeah, as I said, I've done all that planning beforehand, but that was more operational planning and not as much business planning. So if I could have gone back in time and done a bit more business planning, I think I would have been in a better position than what I am now. But obviously, as I said, that initial operational stuff, the policies, procedures, the accreditations and stuff that we've got already, that needed to be done. Otherwise, we wouldn't be getting the work that we're getting now. So hindsight's a wonderful thing. But yeah, I'm quite happy with where we are at the moment.
Right, like that, and actually doing these sort of discussions and these sort of interviews with business owner, that is actually one of the common themes that comes out, in that people are really good at what they do. So whether it's like in your case, traffic management or IT or being a lawyer or solicitor or architect or whatever it is, they're really good at that. But it is the business side of things. Okay, because you know, when do we ever get taught how to run a business? It's not that often that we get that. So I'm interested. You mentioned that you've had these first 18 months have been a real sort of learning process for you. What would you say is your biggest learning since you started out?
Right. Probably trying to understand accounts and taxes and things like that. if I'm honest with you, which I've seen in some of your previous interviews, Simon. A lot of people say the same thing, and I can completely understand that as well. So I'd say learning things about that, like about taxes, and that's probably been one of the biggest learning curves. Um, yeah, I'd probably stick with that, to be honest with you.
Okay, so the financial sort of aspects, but in particular sort of tax and those sort of things. And I always refer to the financial side of things. They're like a scorecard for business. You know, they show
Yeah.
you how well you're doing or how well you're not doing in whatever case it may be. Okay, interesting. So and what about you know, what would you say to anyone thinking of going into business? You know, from your experience so far. I mean, I guess one of the things you've sort of said is already is about learning about business. But is there anything else? What else would you say to anyone thinking of going into business?
I would probably say know your industry.
Yeah.
Know your job to the best of your ability, because you can learn the business stuff. Know that what you can offer is parallel and in some cases better than what other companies can provide.
Yeah.
But yeah, know your industry is probably what I would advise.
Yeah, I like that. So when you say know your industry, is that the operational side of the industry, but also know your industry from a point of view of, okay, who are your competitors?
Yeah,
What's the future look like for the industry? What are the things that are happening in the environment today which could impact the industry that I'm in? Is it all of those sort of things? Is that what you're referring to, Joe?
I would say so. Yeah, obviously you've got to obviously have a sound knowledge of the operational side of things. So yeah, being able to do that, fantastic. Knowing where your industry is progressing to.
Yeah.
Like for example, when I was in Australia, we wasn't using temporary traffic lights out there. It
Right.
was always done with the old stop and go back.
Right, okay.
Well, I said to him when I first got there, I was like, where are your traffic lights? What traffic light? You know, so obviously I knew that was going to be a thing over there. And ultimately, when I ended up leaving Australia, the traffic lights started coming into play out there. So yeah, you need to be able to keep up to date with the technologies that are coming into play, and sort of yeah, try to be able to forecast the direction that the industry is heading in, so that you can remain competitive. Your stuff like your competitors and that. I mean, if you've been in the industry long enough, you'll know who your direct competitors will be. But again, when you come down to doing your business plan, that's when I would then focus on your competitors and what their strengths and disadvantages are, and what my strengths and weaknesses are, and where we can capitalize on. Oh, well, they're not too great at doing that. Well, let's make sure that we can showcase that we can do that better. You know.
Like it. So differentiating yourself from your competitors in saying
Yeah.
that this is, so you're highlighting, you've identified that they may not be good at something, or they may not even do something, and you're saying this is what makes us different because we are good at this, or we do this and they don't, or whatever it
Yeah.
may be. So yeah,
I don't know whether you've probably seen it yourself, Simon. On LinkedIn, you'll have companies that go, "Oh yeah, we provide a second to none service," and everyone says that. Right. Well, I'm not going to say it. I'm going to show you. You know, I think you need a lot of people need to adapt that mentality. I'm great at what I do, but so is a lot of the other people in the industry, because that's how they've got their businesses to be as successful as they are. So I'm not going to keep saying, "Oh yeah, I'm great at this, I'm great at that." Give me an opportunity. Let me show you.
It's an interesting one. Often, you know, when I speak to business owners and I ask them that question, what differentiates yourself from your competition? They'll often say things like, "Well, we're really good at what we do. We offer great service, and etc. etc." But you're absolutely right in what you say, Joe. That doesn't differentiate yourself from your competition, because if I asked your competition what differentiates them from you, they'd probably say the same things.
Yeah.
You know, so it's actually, you're right. What truly differentiates you, and you know, and actually, just a thing to mention here. There's really two types of differentiation. One is actual differentiation. So you actually do something that is different to your competition. The second thing is perceived differentiation.
Yeah.
which means that it's perceived that you do something different from your competitors, because they're not telling people that they do it, or that whatever it may be, and you are.
Yeah.
So there's actual and perceived. So great tip to share there. Thank you for sharing that. So what would you say is one of the biggest challenges that you've faced in your first 18 months, or in setting up your business, Joe?
Probably going back to what we just said about, to be honest, is getting the opportunities, and trying to showcase that we are not different, but we can provide a different type of service. Like, give us an opportunity, we can show you. There's a lot of big names in the industry, and obviously they've been around for quite a substantial amount of time. So it's trying to be able to be competitive in a market where some of these bigger companies can afford to throw a lot of money at it initially. Obviously, we're just trying to be competitive. So what we found is doing a lot of subcontracting work initially for the first 12 months.
Yeah.
We've done a lot of subcontracting, and then there's probably only really been the past 6 months where people are seeing our vans around with our logo up the side, and I've took a little bit more of an interest in like redesigning the website, doing a bit more social media stuff. That we're actually starting to get more of our own clients coming in now. So yeah, I'd say probably trying to compete with some of the bigger players in the game has probably been our biggest challenge so far.
Yeah. Okay. And that's a challenge that a lot of businesses face when they're just starting out. And what we have to remember is those big businesses, they started out small as well at some stage.
100%.
So, but yeah, again, I like the tips that you shared there. Okay. How do we gradually start? You started with subcontracting, building your presence profile, getting people to know you. So brilliant. Thanks again for sharing that. So look, one question I like to ask everybody that comes onto these podcasts and interviews, Joe, is what is the best advice you would give to an 18-year-old you? So if you could go back and speak to yourself when you were 18, and by the way, it's probably not that long ago for you, but it is for me. But what would you say to yourself? What would you say to yourself?
It's longer ago than I'd like to admit, Simon, if I'm honest. Honestly, I think I would probably say something along the lines of stop letting other people influence you. Stop listening to what other people have got to say. There's a lot of people can be quite negative when you come to them with a great idea and you think they're your peer, they're your friend, they're someone that you look up to. If you come to them with a good idea and they can see that it's a good idea, generally they're going to chuck a lot of negativity around it, stop you from doing it. So if I could go back to myself at 18, I'd say don't listen to anyone else, just get up and get on with it.
Yeah, and it might be, as you say, that they're not intentionally trying to be negative. It's just that they might love you, they might be concerned about you, and they don't want you taking sort of certain risks, and they want to make sure that if you are taking risks, that you're going to it open-eyed. But so yeah, it's not that they may intentionally do that, but it's actually, but you're right. Sometimes those things can put you off doing things when actually, in your heart that you want to do it, it's the right thing to do. Yeah, just do it. Let's move ahead. So yeah, great. I love that. Thank you for that piece of advice. And look, as I mentioned before before we came onto this interview, I've got an 18-year-old daughter, so I love sharing these pieces of advice with her, and just sort of saying, look, this is another piece of advice that I picked up. So, well, look, Joe, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today and sharing more about your business and also your journey as well. Thank you very much.
No, thank you for having me, Simon. It's been a pleasure to meet yourself, and thank you for having me again.
Likewise. Thanks very much, Joe.
Brilliant. Take care.